I know the power of story, and everybody has got a story.
Portland, of all places, there's a lot of tough conversations.
Well, we're going to explore what we can do to make a difference in the community. We're going to hear a lot of opinions and ideas.
The mission of Portland Interview Magazine podcast is to connect. This is the Portland Interview Magazine podcast with your host, David Bentley, on TalkCast PDX.
Hi, welcome back to Portland Interview Magazine. I'm David Bentley, and I'm sitting here with, of course, another amazing guest from Portland. And we're talking today about a lot of things. This is, again, a makeup of many subjects, and I try and bring in people that I either admire or I know the city admires, and they're either successful or they're very giving or they're a combination of both and pretty sharp. And this is one of the sharper ones, and he calls it the way it is and the way he sees it. And he's had a lot of experience in business, family, life. And and Portland, as we know these days, is an interesting mix of all sorts of people. And we try and bring you people you either know or you wouldn't mind knowing. And so today we are here with the pleasure of having Dan with us with Office Direct Furniture. He's oftentimes in business, you get it known for a brand because it's a big brand, and he does a great deal of business in Portland. But, we're going to go a little deeper into Dan, his background, who is Dan, and, what are his objectives? How does he look at Portland, things like that, and business, and what's going on today and what he sees in the future. So anyway, without any more of me talking too much, hi, Dan. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Well, let's get into it really quick because they may know your brand. They may know about you're obviously very successful with what you do with furniture and clients, small, large, and the whole bit. Let's hear a little bit about Dan, though. Dan, give me a little background, and I'm going to give that over to you because without taking too much time, but I want them to know a little bit about your background and where you come from and what you'd like to say about where you start.
Well, basically, I came from right here, about 80 blocks away over off 82nd and Flavel. So born and raised Southeast Portlander here.
True local.
Of course, as soon as I had children, I ran to the Southwest side as quick as possible. So I'm currently in Hillsboro, but I base my business out of Multnomah County and have so for 20 plus years. It's Office Furniture Direct, where we sell furniture to mid-size, large companies here in the Portland area. We go up to Seattle, out to Boise, but basically we're here trying now to sell furniture, which is not an easy task.
Well, let's face it, the climate, as we both know, has changed. Tell me about, there's a lot of people out here that have pivoted at this point in life with, again, what's happened from the COVID thing to obviously cities. And we've had a lot of interesting attacks on cities, Portland being one of the highlighted ones, it seems to be nationally. But let's start with business in general. I mean, where did you start off? Because you built quite a business. Where did that whole happen?
Well, it's kind of funny. I took a job as an office furniture delivery guy, when I was like 19 years old. And then being the alpha male that I am, I decided I could just do it better. So I just went ahead and took that over. So I've been in business since I was like 21, 22. Bounced around a few different businesses, tried to own the whole world. I thought I would have office furniture stores up the I-5 corridor from Seattle to Sacramento. Realized there's only one of me. So I left my base in Portland. I was off of Macadam Avenue for 20 plus years. But yeah, so now we've made our home closer to the airport, out more of an industrial area. And business has been tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it sounds like with your voice, you could maybe do country songs or something like that. Do you anybody ever ask you if you sing country or something?
I wish I could. I did get into watching The Voice there for a couple of years, and I love those guys that come out and they just look like a plain nobody, and they have that deep voice. And it's funny how it's always those country male singers that'll get you.
Well, that's funny because talking to you earlier and stuff, I'm like, I wonder if that guy sings because he's got a voice that's gonna be interesting on mic. So being raised now, you have children in the city, and or I should say you're out in Hillsboro. That's where you raise your kids for the most part. Was out in the Hillsboro area.
That is correct.
Okay, and are they looking to follow your footsteps and jump into the biz at this point?
I think I have a 25-year-old daughter who currently is out in kind of the boring area out there, and she's got a real cool boyfriend. We'll do a little shout out to Thunder Inc. out there. They got or Thunder Farms, I believe it's called. So they got quite the little weed operation out there. So she's homegrown.
Okay, right on.
She's out on her own. Has little to not much help from dad. She does everything on her own. So got a 21-year-old son who recently, due to the climate, has moved back in.
Oh, yeah.
So that's interesting. Although he still acts like the same 12-year-old kid that's always constantly dismantling stuff. Now instead of it being the lawnmower and stuff, he's dismantling all the guns and switching parts from one gun to the other. It's like, could you please not touch the M4? I prefer you not do that. But he's an interesting cat. And then I got my 14-year-old daughter from a different mother, and she's actually down at a boarding school in Utah. So we've opted to send her out of state.
Okay.
To get an education where she plays sports, and it's an academic boarding school, so it's really high level stuff out there. Wasatch Academy.
She responds well with that. I mean, kids at boarding school, you get one or the other. I mean,
she chose. She actually wanted to be a foreign exchange student to China, which wasn't happening with the COVID. Since this kid was 10 years old, she's wanted to go away to college. It's very odd to have I got full custody of her when she was 12. She's now 14. And the first thing she wanted to do was go away to school. As a high school freshman, imagine driving your kid 2 days drive away, setting up a dorm room for a 14-year-old. It was amazing.
Well, that's interesting to me, but because a lot of people don't know either what they want to do or whatever until they're well out of the teens. Sometimes, maybe even in their early 20s, they start getting a clue. But does she have? I mean, is there a goal in mind on this?
She's an odd one. She's smart. She's very athletic, but she's just always wanted to be a grown up. It's been weird. My other kids have always been loving, and I've coached all their sports, and we've been real tight and hugs and a lot of affection. And this kid, it's been explained to me that she'll probably make a really good CFO. She won't have a lot of friends, and she'll be cutthroat. So
she'll know the numbers. Yeah. All business. No, that's good.
Well, her mom is an economics professor, so I think a little bit of that comes
DNA.
Yeah,
ran through it.
Yeah.
Well, now tell me about some of your hobbies, because when I just heard the gun thing, I'm thinking, hey, he likes to probably hunt.
The gun thing. So as I grew up in the Portland area, after getting expelled from every school in the inner city, our parents moved us out to the coast, to the small town of Vernonia. So halfway to the coast. We did some hunting out there, and that's where we got a little bit more outdoorsy. Me personally, I've never been a huge hunter. I hunt. I like to fish. I'm not real big into guns. It's more my son's hobby. My son, when he was 10, 12 years old, he was all into the whole zombie thing. So we had to prepare for that.
Oh, I see.
So it's kind of a fun hobby. And now that he's back home again, it's just like, it's an endless amount of financial, now we got Glocks with laser sights and all sorts of stuff. It's actually getting a little scary, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's the equipment's gotten pretty high tech.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You couldn't imagine how many things you could put on a gun. He's got tripods on our rifles, double scopes, weird stuff. But I like to work out.
That's one of your kind of hobbies is self-improvement, physical self-improvement.
Well, when you become an empty nester, and your children, which everybody in this room sounds like they have children that are a little bit older, you get to that point where you don't have people that need you as much. And my business the last couple of years has been nothing.
Brutal.
Going through some major life changes and becoming 44 years old, and then you're free all of a sudden. It's just like you got to kind of find something to do. So working out, getting some new ideas, going new tattoos, getting rid of the 1990 armbands.
moving in a different
a
direction.
little shout out to Pamela Anderson with the barbed wire.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's just been just working on self-care, and that's helped because everybody gets a little depressed and down being stuck in the house. Me being one of them, my whole life savings and retirement being gone,
Mhm.
to keep my business afloat, um, and not being able to do anything about it. You could put all your time and effort into what you call pivoting, which you mentioned quite often. I know you've pivoted and done some stuff, and
Mhm.
when you put all your eggs into one basket, and you're an office furniture dealer, and you have a 50,000 square foot building full of office furniture, your eggs are in one basket.
Yeah, yeah, they are, and you know, I think prior to this interview, we had a couple conversations. I thought one was interesting because a lot of people would naturally go maybe where I'm going with the, hey, there's a lot of home businesses happening. So I'm assuming there was some demand with setting up home businesses and people in their office setting up things, whether it be a new business or their company, quite frankly, was letting them work from home. So they thought they'd redesign. But that's interesting because you also shared with me how that really plays out on a business level with just addressing onesies and versus big floors of offices in downtown.
Yeah, it's and people being from Portland, they're shoppers. Everybody loves to shop online, and if you're not set up with that format, we're the good old boy, shake your hand, show up, do a good job. The companies that we work with are larger companies that will call me up that have a relationship with me and say, "Hey, we need 50 butts in this area by this timeline." And they leave it to me, and I take care of it. That's what we do. We go in, we take care of those things. So we work for larger companies, a lot of construction people. They speak our language, get it
Hmm.
done. We have a lot of bigger contracts here, with some companies that'll get, we'll say, some Navy contracts and some different stuff, where we know how to set up and work with the government. But yes, there was a lot of call for in-home sales, and when people ask you what your return policy is, that's probably not your customer.
Right.
It's not Amazon.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I think pivot's the wrong word, but direction for. Okay, so give me some ideas in terms of, and well, I want to get into also downtown and a little bit of politics with you because you're affected directly by that. But I do want to ask a couple more questions on spread of business because I think a lot of business people are going to be watching and listening to this podcast and then resonating with some of what you're saying. Okay, so Beaverton, Vancouver, Salem, they weren't as targeted, didn't seem to be as targeted, obviously, as Black Lives Matter had their heavy protests and everything going on downtown, breaking things apart. That you've had to deal with in the core of Portland, which was a big base of business. So, did you reach out to other areas? Are you watching growth? Are you
So
watching a reconstruction of how things are done?
so we've always had very tight with the whole Portland area. Washington County right now is pretty big. Intel, and it's not Intel directly that we sell with, but it's all the companies that work with Intel. So we have two large projects that are both over the $150,000 range, which is a good project for us.
Mhm.
And those are companies, tech-ish companies, that require workstations, cubicles, which that's what we specialize in, is
Mhm.
used workstations, because there's a lot of value to that. Buying a new workstation right now, you can't barely get,
Mhm.
because they're backed up 6, 7, 8 months. They don't have the materials, but I have a whole warehouse, thousands of
Lightly
them.
used is not a bad deal.
That's right. And so a lot of people, especially now, that are trying to, their building budgets, the supplies, the contractors, all their prices go up. So we've had POs and jobs that have been on the books for over a year, and they've had to stop because they had to rebid them out because of the material cost. Our material stays the same. We don't have an issue, and we're able to get this done because we have all the inventory in our warehouse. So, not to say we haven't had problems, because we sell mainly new chairs, new desks, reception, conference tables, things of that nature. But when it gets down to the meats and potatoes, where you need 100 workstations delivered and installed, we can do that all day, every day. because I have them in my warehouse. So that's the one thing that has saved my company is everything that I have in my warehouse I own. So that $150,000, yeah, 30, 40,000 of it may be all new chairs where I'm making 30% profit margin, which barely covers the hike in cost and the labor because I too had to give my cost of living hikes to my employees to keep everybody on a level playing field. But being able to get 100% profit on the used product has been the only thing that has kept me in business. Plus the 500 plus $1,000 I've taken out of my retirement.
That's a big hit. That's a hit. And I guess I use myself mentally as a guinea pig because I drive around Portland quite a bit, and I see a lot of skyscrapers going up. But I still see quite a bit of construction. Now it's either pre-planned from 4 years ago, and they're on a momentum of completion. But are they giving birth to all that new stuff, or has that been on the books and they're moving forward with their projects accordingly? Because I just get a little worried about filling in all those office buildings and seeing business as usual in the next 3 years, quite frankly.
Well, it's funny. I haven't had much reason to be downtown the last year and a half, 2 years. I surely don't go down there and eat anymore. And then also on top of that, I think in 2021 we did $5,800 worth of sales. That's $5,800 to the downtown Portland area.
Compared to
give you a comparison, on average over a 10-year span, we're $800,000 and over per year. So my trucks have not been downtown Portland. At the very beginning of COVID, we did do a lot of removals where people gave up right away and left. And now what we're seeing is a lot of companies that have just decided to go elsewhere. So a lot of the bigger national companies just retreat back to Boise, got some people that go back to Sacramento. Salt Lake City is a big one. And they just forget about the Northwest. They don't want to be here.
They're big enough to take the hit and move on.
Those are the ones. And they leave their furniture standing and they just leave. The smaller companies, because of the new MOMA tax and the cost of living and the whole politics of Multnomah County, have been running out to Lake Oswego. There's a corridor out in Tiger Lake Oswego that becomes Washington County, and people jump into that zip code as much as possible to avoid the tax from Multnomah County. So we have a lot of business, smaller business of smaller offices, we'll say 20 to 30 people per office, that have been heading out that way. But some of the biggest changes, and I know we've spoke about this, is where you have a company that has thousands of employees downtown in the Portland area, and even carry the Portland city name in their company name, and they've decided to go to Sherwood, Tualatin. Basically, they're following all their employees who are moving to Tualatin and Sherwood and Newburgh, Wilsonville, and basically refuse to come downtown. So these guys sit with empty office space, and they've actually provided new office space in those other towns for their employees.
A friend of mine used to tell me you can tell a recession and different things by construction and different snapshots of what's coming or whatnot. He was a lumber broker, and he says, I know 6 months in advance what's going to happen. And you remind me of another marker, of sorts with what's going on in terms of how you're contacted. You said you have, if the direct client is Intel, you have other people that are acting as a client and using you as a supply source. So you have many clients, not just one name. It depends on how it's all coming to you. But when you look at the forecast at this point, obviously you just gave me the numbers on the participation of business, the percentage of business that you're basically getting out of downtown. The forecast doesn't look great for you, or great for, I should say, a lot of people in the business of office or
anything. I mean, you think
real estate, commercial real estate,
restaurants. I mean, the whole city of Portland, because of the downtown. I mean, that's the nucleus. It's funny because I kind of look for numbers and you want to see how many people are running out of Multnomah County for the tax business wise, but how many people are running out of here because the homelessness, the lawlessness, also the cost of living.
The popularity of defunding the police. I mean, I don't know who came up with that brand. That was crazy.
Well, that's an entirely different issue. I mean, when you go
Right.
into the whole police force issue, where now we have nobody out there to protect us,
Yeah.
because I'm not quite sure what the thought behind that was, but
Well, I'll share this. It's not my interview, but I will share this. Is I was at Starbucks, and as you can imagine, once in a while you see some cops there having their coffee and whatnot. And I went up to one in particular. He's a supervisor, and I said, I normally don't stop and ask you guys questions. And the bottom line is, I asked him, how's the, what kind of numbers and what's going on downtown and these kinds of questions. And this is maybe 9 months ago. And he goes, well, when I started 10 years ago, we had about 1,200 police force in Portland. We're at 600. We can't answer all the calls. I mean, it was kind of a shocker, because they were just real matter of fact about it. And they said they're recruiting out of New York. They run ads and they try and recruit people of other cities, because we do have what looks good on paper from, housing in comparison to New York City. We've got pretty interesting numbers to offer somebody in terms of livability and stuff out here. But, the popularity, and we really don't feel like we have the inner support of the city, as far as them backing us up.
Makes it real tough to get somebody to come work for a city that doesn't want police.
Yeah, it's just a little bit, the messaging's pretty tough. And because I think really, truly, if you went out and just grabbed everyone off the street in the suburbs and said, hey, do you want some police? I mean, the percentages would be pretty high that they'd want to support the police force. They're not perfect. None of us are, and I realize there should be additional training. I realize we've got a lot of issues, mental health issues, all these things that police pull up upon. And I get that. We need, but no discipline and no cops isn't probably a good idea either.
Well, it's real simple. I'm a law-abiding citizen for the most part.
Yeah.
But when I go through Portland, I go through without a worry. I go as fast as I can, speed, no turn signals, whatever I want. But as soon as I start going over the zoo, I know there's Washington County cops up there. When I'm driving through Hillsborough, I got to use my blinker and I got to watch my speed, because there's cops out there. They're patrolling out there. Here in Portland, there's nothing. There is nothing. Matter of fact, I drove down to your studio down here. There used to be a lot of cops down here, but they pulled them up all out of here because of all the damage and the rioting. So there's not even a police force down here in the inner city.
The different things are markers in my head. As I was going over the Fremont Bridge on a Sunday, like at 7 p.m., and these cars with these, I felt like they must have been thinking they were filmed in one of those movies, Fast and Furious or something.
Vin Diesel.
I mean, there's at least 8 cars ripping by us at 90, 95 over the bridge, maybe 100. I'm not kidding you, right past me, and I'm doing like 65. And I'm thinking, wow. I mean, I realized I was 16 once and crazy, or 18, a little bit aggressive on the road as a youngster with my car, but I wasn't doing this. And I was thinking they can just get by with it because no one's doing anything on the road like they used to.
Yeah.
And so they can just have the road to themselves a bit.
I don't see police cars here in the Portland area. We stopped in our area because we're in an industrial area when this COVID started to hit, and we started having some homeless problems out there. You only called the cops once or twice until you got the point that you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to come help you. And so we've had to self-police ourselves out there, put fences up, alarm systems. But yeah, it's unfortunate. And, as a business owner or anybody from Portland, you look at your taxes and you look at what you're paying for and what you're receiving. What are you receiving? We don't have a beautiful city that's bringing in new businesses, new money. As a business owner, if you're paying all these taxes, you want to be seen that, if I'm paying for a beautiful city and I'm paying for growth, that's great. Because in the bottom line is I'm going to make more money. But now it's like we're paying top dollar in taxes and everybody's running as fast as they can.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a little bit of a warning for all the companies that are moving out to the suburbs, where do you think you're going to be when Portland implodes and there's nothing here anymore? It's a little scary if you think about it.
Do you think Portland will catch itself before it hits even a further bottom, than what's going on?
I'd like to think that there's some influential, help me out with the word.
Influential.
Yeah. People in the Portland area, especially some of the the skyscrapers that you're talking about, they may put up with this for a while.
We got the Ritz going, for God's sake.
Yeah, and there may be a little bit of everybody's kind of little sidetracked because of the COVID and some of the other stuff. But when you have people that put that kind of money and own those kind of buildings and have the infrastructure downtown, and they're not going to go more than 4 or 5 years with not having clients to lease their buildings, there'll be something will have to happen. But I mean, I don't see something being fixed tomorrow or even next year. I think we're looking at a 5 to 10 year. We're going to hit rock bottom. Multnomah County has the highest taxes, and everybody's moving out of Multnomah County. So, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the pool of money they're going to be getting from people is going to become extremely less each year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a lease all the way up until the end of 2022, and I can't wait to get out of Multnomah County because there's no reason for me to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not getting anything out of Multnomah County business-wise. Everything is further out. Matter of fact, to throw something out there, if you ever would have told me that I would get 10 times more business from downtown Vancouver than I would downtown Portland, it's laughable just saying that out loud, but it's true. It is.
It's sad but true.
Yes, very sad.
Because there's a different population load in Portland. You'd think that the percentages would be there over even Vancouver, but that's.
I'm not quite sure because it's been so frustrating to watch how the city's handled stuff, not just in the past couple of years with COVID, but last 10 years. We went from a high, everybody wanted to come to Portland. Very popular.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses, and that was great for me. But it didn't take very long for it to get back to people. You know, when I travel to Utah and people are just like, oh, you're from Portland. It's not, oh, your city's so beautiful. You know, it's so great. It's everybody.
City of Roses.
Yeah. You know, everybody thought Portland was up on a pedestal,
Mm-hmm.
All those years, and it didn't take very long for us to fall. But with that being said, hell, maybe we can get back up there that quick.
Well, I think quite frankly, and I'm not saying I have the answers, and I don't know necessarily who does, but there's a couple, I think some hard love that's going to have to be handed out around in certain aspects of our city or in different ways possibly, but we're lacking a plan. And that's what's hard. What's the plan?
Well, it certainly isn't tax more and throw more money away. And that's been the plan, or that's been the solution to the problem.
Well, it's like throwing money at what are we throwing money at? That's what goes back to the plan. I mean, I don't mind if we can find a way to get out and get things back on track or whatnot. But if you're telling me you need more money to work a roadmap that's not getting you anywhere, that's an issue.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because I can sit here and talk all day about all the problems with Portland.
Yeah.
And then I have very little to say on how you can fix it.
Well, and that's I think that's an honest statement because, we can say, it's easy to pick apart something, but it's really hard to come up with some of the solutions. But that's why we pay them the big money.
Yeah. And it's sad because, I've met so many people that have been, Oregonians their whole life. And everybody wants to move. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to leave. And you didn't really, growing up in Portland and just working here, I didn't really understand how lucky we were until I started traveling back to the East Coast, Midwest. The perfect everything that we have. I tried to live in San Antonio, Texas. I didn't even make it a year.
Okay.
It's hot and nasty.
Or Austin? Did you check out Austin?
Austin was cool.
Okay.
College. I was a little bit younger back then.
We get associated with that Austin thing.
Yeah, Austin. Yeah, keep Austin weird.
Yeah.
Keep Portland. They say we stole that.
Yeah, we did actually. From my understanding, I don't have all the facts, but I heard we did.
Awesome, but it doesn't change the heat and stuff. If you're born and raised in the Northwest, I mean, got to have green, got to have trees. Hell, you even got to have bridges. I mean, this is built into our DNA. Like, you're not going anywhere unless you're going over a bridge.
Right.
And not having to pay a toll, of course.
Yeah.
Which will be coming, I'm sure.
So what you're saying is the difference of a healthy Portland and a rockin' Portland and what you experienced also traveling to understand how special Portland has been.
Yeah. It's has a lot of special attributes to it. And I'm not quite sure how to get those back. I mean, and I'm not quite sure with the way that we're conducting ourselves if we're even interested in getting it back.
Now, in fairness, because granted, I mean, we've done some. Well, we've done some reality folk as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we're saying anything anybody hasn't even heard or observed, really. We're just putting it out here. But Seattle, San Francisco, some of these West Coast, they're in some of the same pickle.
Yeah, just a second ago, I wanted to kind of reference Seattle, but I didn't want to be rude, because when I would go to Seattle as a kid, we'd go up there to watch the Seahawks play.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have some fond memories of Seattle as a kid. And then as I went up there as a young adult, and even now, it's it's a shithole. It's nasty in a lot of parts of Seattle. It's too corporate. It's not Seattle
A
anymore.
little colder vibe within just the whole
Yeah.
structure of how everything's done.
Yeah, and you go to San Francisco and there's some fun parts of San Francisco, but yeah, the bigger cities that get popular quick. And I think, not to mean this in a negative way, but I think when you bring all the different cultures and the different people and what makes your city great. For example, I know maybe help me out with the proper term is for San Francisco, the LGBTQ.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you have all these people from that community that flock there because they have they identify with it. And Portland just was identified as keep Portland weird. Portlandia, kind of a different thing. People that have some unique senses, and the microbrew, which helped. I mean, that was nice, but different people flock to different cities for different reasons. And I think when you bring so many different people in that quick, it causes problems. Housing, cost of living, it causes a lot of things. But it's interesting that you stated those three cities because it's San Francisco, then it happened to Seattle, and now Portland. And if you go back, let's circle back to San Francisco that had that first big boom.
Yeah.
Of just being very popular and having different dynamics to the city. Businesses wanted to be there. Do businesses still want to be there? Where have all the businesses gone? It's just like what's going on in Seattle.
Looking at COVID, I think the COVID and having Zoom meetings, quite frankly, and the dynamics of how people had to do business to reconnect, and instead of obviously the airlines weren't flying, so again back to Zoom, different things. Working from home, we do have from internet to all the capabilities. We all have phones, and so I think the way that 2 years of being shut down has attacked the core concept of doing business as a collective and as a large population in a city where it can spread. Take the housing crunch on top of that, a little cheaper real estate the further you go out, for a lot of folks. And so if they can make the conversion to working from home, but living in Scappoose, the affordability stuff. So I think there's a lot of different pressures at once that are going on to create this pretty perfect storm. And that's without getting into rioting. That's without getting into some other issues of what, the destruction of Portland, and what they did. I think there was other pressures. So perfect storm.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm trying to think back because as a small business owner, everything's just a blur. Head down, keep moving forward. But we went through a time where the bigger companies were trying the at-home work from home thing, and they very promptly brought everybody back in because of the fact that it wasn't working out.
They lacked the team dynamic.
Right. And we're gonna see that once the COVID clears up, once some of these everybody starts seeing the bottom line and the numbers aren't where they or should be at, they're going to start bringing people in back into work.
As you just mentioned, because right now they were saying they're getting numbers back that were positive. People were as productive from home. But like you said, if you take the social aspect of certain aspects of that out and the grouping, the team building, all the stuff, you're right. How is it going to fatigue?
Yeah.
Is the loneliness going to creep in? Is the isolation's going to creep in? That we're human beings. Don't we want to be around culture and people and team?
And it's funny because as we keep talking more and more and getting into this, it's just like my mind just starts to wander, and I start thinking about all these restaurants. And I was laughing a little bit this morning when I opened up my fridge and I saw this order out box of looks like spaghetti that my son brought in, and
Yeah.
I just happened to have his bank information on attached to mine, and I just thought to myself, oh, let's see what this is. Calls in Uber Eats at 10, 11 o'clock at night, pays like $40 for a thing of spaghetti. It's crazy to me. And then when you go into restaurants, the other day I just happened to be hungry, and I was on the side, doing a little business, and there's a Subway, just a Subway shop. I try to go in there just to get a sandwich, and I got 6 call-in orders or Uber Eats orders ahead of me, and it's just crazy. The whole world, the whole dynamics.
Instead of 4 people making sandwiches on the busy time at Subway, there's 2 with a help wanted up.
Yeah, help wanted up, and then on top of that, you have imaginary customers that aren't even there, that
Yeah.
are in front of you because
Yeah.
they Uber Eat or Google. I don't. You can obviously tell I'm not one of those people. Yeah, I'm definitely. I mean, I try not to. I'm trying to talk my kids into throwing our phones away because I don't even want to have phones anymore. That's how far I am the other direction.
So do you see yourself staying in Oregon forever and ever kind of thing? I mean, you are definitely a local. You're local born and bred. What do you see?
Well, it's funny because I've been out on the dating scene recently, and it seems like every person that I've gone out with is can't wait to get out of Portland. And it's
Really?
really weird, yeah. And it's to me, it's just like, oh, I could never leave. But man, other than my business, which is faltering, and I don't see huge upside to the business, I don't really know what keeps me here. I guess I'm a creature of habit. I have a certain schedule I like to keep. I like to do my same daily schedule and routine, but I don't think there is a lot to keep me here.
Are
If I
you
could find a way to cash out or to recoup some of my loss over the last couple of years, I could see myself moving on.
at one point or another
Yeah.
when you're done? Um, Real quick, my background's local in terms of support local and obviously your local business. Um, how do you look at local here? And because I think local is the fiber of Portland. It keeps it unique. The local businesses, whether they're buying and creating a collective store within how they're merchandising or whether they're creating and manufacturing goods themselves, I think local is huge. Part of what makes us really unique. How do you see and how do you support local? I mean, you're obviously a business.
One of my favorite things to do, with my youngest child, we used to spend quite a bit of time together after school, and we'd love to go to Momoma Village. And what we liked about Momoma Village is it's all locally owned small shops. And I used to tell my daughter, I was like, I'm a small business owner. It's my duty to pay it back. So I try to buy local. Again, I'm a creature of habit, so like I'm very loyal to my Fred Meyer's that's next to my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very loyal to my Caddy Car Wash that's next to my house.
Yeah.
But I think the whole buying local has been blown up when you have Amazon, when you have these bigger chains.
Well, first, obviously, it was Walmart. Now Walmart has to watch out for Amazon.
Yeah, well, and now, I mean, it's just like, so I'm a coupon shopper. I don't like to admit that too often, but I grew up with my grandma who went through the Depression. She was
Okay.
from,
That transferred over.
yeah, Little Rock,
Okay.
Arkansas, working on the cotton fields. I've heard it all. But I used to cut coupons for her when I was a little kid, and I still have that whole coupon mentality. But I got to tell you, now that it's like digital coupons and you got to download apps and you got to do all this, it just takes the fun out of it. So I'm less and less about the coupons, and I don't have kids at home to feed anymore. So,
Yeah.
I go buy my food once a week.
Mhm.
So I get prepared food from my local Fit Foods, give them a little shout out. And it's economical,
Mhm.
and it's easy. If you think about all the time a lot of people spend going out to eat or trying to find out what they want to eat, I go somewhere and I pick out my week's worth of food in about 5 minutes, put it in a bag, take it home, put it in my fridge. So I don't have to think a lot about what I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat 5 times a day. That means I'm going to eat 5 containers a day. just like when I get up in the morning, I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear because I have all the same shirts hanging up in my closet.
Yeah, so that makes it a lot easier.
Same shirt, same hat, same
hat.
jeans, same shoes.
Well, today we've been spending time talking with Dan and discussing, as you can tell, a variety of subjects. And I appreciate a lot of your insights. And some people will, of course, as you know, share your insights. Some people may have an argument one way or another because everyone's walking different paths around here. But I love to hear people's story and how they think and how they're seeing things, because it takes all of us to look at what's going on to get the right perspective. I think there's something to learn always. So this is Dan, Office Furniture Direct, and thanks for stopping in and giving us the chat.
Thanks for having me.
All right.